All right, so let me quickly welcome you to the video recording and editing techniques course. We call it video editing, recording and editing for basics. That's from basics to monetization mastery. I am your host again, Dr. Gundele Maiwa, and I'll be taking us, on this course, video recording and editing techniques. I want you to understand that this it's one of the core of the course in the academy. Let's get it started. And I would like to start by telling you that great content isn't about your camera. In case you're thinking your camera is everything, I want you to understand that great content is not about your camera. It's about those fundamental things you put in place before you even start recording. So it's about lighting, it's about composition, and your audio. So whether you are using iPhone, whether it's Android you are using, or you even have access to about $10,000 dollar worth of camera rig, permit me to tell you that all those things doesn't matter. What really matter is actually the most important thing is actually what I've talked about, the environment you created before you even start recording at all. So expensive gear can help, don't get me wrong, but it's unnecessary to start with expensive gear. That's what we're talking about. So when you blame your camera for your bad footage, it's likely poor lighting or framing that should be blamed for that. So I welcome you. So let us quickly define what is video recording. We said that video recording is the process of capturing moving images and sound using a camera or other recording devices. You know what I'm talking about. It involves collecting raw footage during an event, performance, or any situation at all where visual documentation is needed. So on that note, we said the process can be performed with various techniques ranging from professional grade cameras to smartphones, and it typically results in a digital or a analog file that serve as a basis for further production work, which we call post-production anyway. Then that leads me to the next part, which is the video editing. Video editing is just a process of manipulating and rearranging recorded video footages to create a final product. These include cutting and trimming segments. It can be adding transitions, overlay audios, applying special effects, and making color corrections. So editing generally transforms the raw recordings into a cohesive narrative or presentation that meets the creative vision and technical requirement of a particular project. So this is what we term as video recording and video editing. So while we are preparing ourselves to get involved into this, let's quickly check some of the equipment that is required anyway to get this done. First and foremost, we'll talk about your camera, which can come in form of your smartphone and at the same time your digital camera. Let's look at smartphone. Smartphone actually happens to turn to be a modern, I'm talking about a modern smartphone now, and when we're talking about, we are referring to any smartphone that can enable us to have at minimum 4K capabilities. So we other things that can help us to do is probably manually, adjust some of the features on the phone to utilize the camera resources very well. I'm talking about manual focus, I'm talking about HDR, and it enables grid line for composition. So when you start your phone and you enable grid line, it helps you to focus properly. We'll talk about all of that very soon. You can use a digital camera, which can be in form of DSLR, mirrorless camera, that offers a depth of field and control and a higher dynamic range. So we can use smartphone, we can use digital cameras, we can even use tripod. Tripod is actually for stabilization anyway. It's essential for static photos, taking story shots, taking head videos. You need a level of stabilization, and tripod can be used on that. I'll go to that very soon. And we have gimbal. I'll show you what gimbal looks like anyway. It's also to maintain stabilization. You are tracking shots, you are walking, and at the same time you are capturing events. So to maintain balance, that is what gimbal is used for. Gimbal properly allow us to avoid motor strain while we are recording. We have DIY fixes. If there is no stabilizer, which means you now have to involve DIY. It props the camera on a steady surface or use while you are walking, while you are in a walking mode. So on that note, DIY fixes help us to maintain stability at that point. This is camera, this is smartphone. You can see the two of them, anyone you want to use. Like I said, whether you are using smartphone or you're using camera, the most important thing is that your environment and the techniques you use in recording, that's what really matters. All of these are not actually the first thing to focus on. Don't get me wrong, good camera will also help in recording, but most importantly, you don't worry yourself about it. That is what I'm talking about. You can see what tripod looks like. Tripod help us to hold the camera or hold the smartphone, whichever way you want it. There are a lot of them nowadays that can function very well. I have one myself, and it's a bit on the high side, but notwithstanding, it's doing a lot of good job as far as I'm concerned. You can see the difference between the gimbal and the DIY. So they serve separate stdifferent purpose. But the two of them are meant to do what? To maintain stability. They are stabilizers when it comes to. Now let's talk about the lighting setup. There is what is called the natural light, which is the cheapest of them all. You are shooting during the golden hours of the day when the sun is up there, and at that level you talk about soft light or warm light. That's all you're talking about. What you want to avoid? You want to avoid harsh midday sun. That's very important because of the fusion. You want to avoid daylight. Very, very important. You can shoot in shaded areas when you are recording during the daytime, but you just want to avoid that harsh midday sun. It's very important. You can like I said, it's soft during the golden hours of the day when the sun is rising or when the sun is, setting, you want to use sun at that time, it's going to be a soft or warm type of light. And I think that's the most, the cheapest part of it. Now you can also create light environment for light, that's the artificial, and we call it 3-point light lighting, which we talk about the key light. That's the main source. We have the fill light, which reduces shadows. That's for the fill light. You don't want to capture shadows along with your recording. And the other part is backlight, which also separate the foreground from the background. That's separating the subject from your background. The other part of it is we have a budget friendly type of light is not friendly. Light is not that cheap. That's what I want to say. It's not that cheap. You can use LED panels, or you can use ring light, whichever one you want to use. Position light at angle 45 degree will give you a kind of cinematographic type of effect when you are recording. That's 45 degrees angle to the subject. Now, what do you want to avoid? You want to avoid shadows. So when you want to avoid shadow, you use reflectors to avoid shadow. We have white foam board, and that one reduce light bounce. So it reduce the bounce of light into the subject face. That's the reason why you want to use a reflector to get that done. Look at this setup. These are the types of light you can use. You can see the background. That's a white background. People stand on it. Picture can be taken, videos can be taken from that background. Then the background can be worked on by itself. You have the light, different lights, type of light you can use depending on what you are shooting. So these are the type of light you want to consider when you are shooting. All right, let's quickly look at the composition techniques. These composition techniques, there is what is called rule of thirds. We have angle perspectives. I'm going to show us all of that very soon. The ones that there are a lot of them anyway. We can't go through all of them. So let's take on the first one that we call the rule of thirds. So look at it this way. Let's assume that we are trying to take the picture of this lighthouse, and we want it to be detailed. We want the narration to be correct on our side. So look at what the rule of thirds says. You divide it into 3. You can see we have about 1, 2, 3, and then we have 1, 2, 3. We divide it into 3 on the horizontal and on the what, and on the vertical. So what we try to do is to focus our object, as you can see with this light. We focus the object on on the third. That's on the third. You can see 1, 2. So in between the second and the third, the line that breaks the second and the third, our object is positioned there. And by the time you look at it properly, you already have the subject, which is the house light, the lighthouse. Then we have the grass, we have the house, that's the waterside house there, and we have the we have the river itself showing, including the sky. But the most important thing is our subject, which is the lighthouse, which stands out and becomes clear. Now this type of shot can also be applied when we are in an interview session. Look at what we have here. This is an example, exactly what it looks like. You can see the lady happens to be the subject, and she's being positioned by the camera on the line that separates the second column from the third column. And you can see So that way you are able to create a narrative that distinctly, reflects the background, and not just reflecting the background, purely showing out, or narrating the subject in itself. That is this concept is actually very simple. You have a three line, that's 3 column horizontal, 3 column vertical, and you now look at the third line. That's the third, the line in between the second column and the third column. That's where you position the subject. I love this part personally for me, especially when I'm doing a video that has to do with what you are looking at, and it helps me to actually position the subject, and at the same time still create space for other distraction. I might even be able to use it to display text as I make my recordings. That is for the rules of thought. The second one is leading light, which talks about that's more like a perspective, and you can, okay, let's look at it from this, using a regular, you can see, using a regular line to capture your subject. And this is the subject is that lady that is coming up, and we're using for consistency, we are using that line. You can see those 4 lines that combine, that converge at the object, as our focus. And you can see the person, the object, it's the subject rather, will be moving close while we still maintain that frame. That is when we talk about the leading line. Look at this also, the same narrative from the lighthouse. You can see this is the road that actually leads to the lighthouse, and that can serve so this is the example of the lighthouse, and you can see the road that leads to the lighthouse actually serve as our leading line, and we can actually use that as a guide in positioning. This is more or less like talking about perspective anyway, so we can actually use those leading line to focus our shot correctly. That is it. Look at how it's been implemented here. We have a woman, that's the subject, and we are taking the subject from the leading line. You can see the red line that serves as the leading line into the subject. That's exactly what we are talking about. It's another thing. It doesn't necessarily need to be regular. You can see what we have here. With this one, we have you can see we have like a fence, farm fence. At the other side, we have a collection of trees and forests at the other side, all looking as if they are heading into the mountain behind them. So we use both the fence and the forest line to do what? To focus on the mountain behind them, and it gives a very beautiful narration. That's what we are talking about. What we are talking about, the leading line. The other part is this symmetry, and this one, I use this a lot, and the idea is actually for us to be able to balance everything, both the subject and the background. You want to balance them. That's what you are doing with it. Let's look at it from this. We still follow the same, that three column, 3 line. Look at it. 1 2 3 horizontal, 1 2 3, vertical, and we position our object at the middle frame, at the middle at the middle frame. That's what symmetry is talking about, balancing the whole scene. That's what we are doing. That for me to be able to drive that point home, you can see we have the grid, and in the grid we now have the subject at the middle of the grid, balancing the background and at the same time not leaving out the pure narration that is on the subject. That is what we refer to when we refer to, and especially this one happens, you usually use this frequently when you are trying to you are addressing your audience directly, so you are conscious of the background and at the same time you balance your background with your subject, focusing on the middle of the grid. That is what we are talking about when we are talking about symmetry.